Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. Yeah. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah. Escape to the metaverse. Better act like you know. You are now tuned into the Matthew and Rizzle show. Yeah.
What's up, dude? How are you, man?
Pretty good, man. Got out of the house, so no more crying baby. That's always a big bonus point, especially when we have to record something. No worries about baby barging into the room.
Yes, dude, trust me. I know the feeling. My dog does it to me now, periodically, which is why I sort of hole up and my dog tries to find me. Cool, dude. What's top of mind?
We want to give a shout out to Maiko Lightnin. I think he airdropped us an edition of Golden Apple of the Forest.
Totally. Yeah, you got one too.
Yeah. I saw it and I almost thought it was spam at first, and then I saw his tweet and I'm like, oh shit, actually legit.
I didn't even see his tweet. I saw it, but didn't even know why I got it. Why did I get it?
He sent it to folks at Async Art and folks at the Whip Meetup, aka us, I guess.
Oh shit.
I just retweeted it a little earlier this morning. He tagged just the Whip Meetup. That's probably why you missed it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I'll check it out.
Yeah, but it's perfect symbolism. We can shout that out. I was digging through my old OpenSea profile, and I saw all these old NFTweets from like late 2020, early 2021, and I was like, oh shit. I have an XCOPY, and I just was digging down the rabbit hole there, and XCOPY had minted like 23 tweets using valuables, and it was just like one of these like little archaeological NFT digs, and I'm like, oh shit, folks probably.
Cool, you should shut up, dude. This is good shit. We should just like let it rip. Seriously, this is cool.
Cool. All right. Well, let's mark this point in time. Dragonite, please don't really interrupt us, but this is the start of the official new episode of the Matthew and Rizzle show.
I would never rudely interrupt the Matthew and Rizzle show during a recording.
What up, dude? We're back another week. Yeah. What do you want to chew on? What do you want to get into for the first topic?
Dude, I'm in the middle of like a lot of things right now. I got the Rizzlefest ticket, like public sale goes live today, which to be honest, I'm not like anticipating a huge, I feel like most of the people who I know who are in our circle who are coming got a ticket already. So I have no idea what to expect, but I'm in the middle of like organizing that and packing for ETH Denver to LARP as a reporter for the rest of the week, organizing the whip as well for Thursday, which I'll be at despite being in ETH Denver, which should be another fun one. So a lot of stuff like sort of personally going on within the space that has prevented me from like really getting a good feel for like what's going on within the context of the space. But honestly, I was thinking about this the other day, man. Like I feel like the space has just gotten the tech has gotten so fun. A lot of the new tech is like so fun, and the space just seems like very stale in general. So I don't like miss being like I don't know, on like the ground floor of like every single new project coming out or whatever, because I just feel like periodically there are exciting things and like really interesting things that come out. And actually Nada Alex is like doing something interesting that I couldn't figure out. And I was like in conversation with Kuroki earlier trying to decipher what is happening with chain faces. And he's doing like some weird thing where you can like send them to the ordinals contract or whatever. And I'm like, all right, cool on Nate. Like Nate's always like, I don't know. I feel like in the bear market doing some weird blockchain experiment or something. So I love like coming across stuff like that. But I don't know, man, you were talking about it like earlier, how you were doing like a little archaeology in your own collection before I think we started officially recording. And I feel like I'm having a lot of fun, like doing the same type of stuff, man. I feel like at this point in the scene, like I'm like in a pretty good spot in terms of like, having a lot of like fun people to work alongside with who like are sort of heads down right now, like building fun stuff and like working alongside each other and everything. So I don't know, I guess I'm hitting the adage of like, heads down building in the bear market type of thing, but that's where the fun is at right now.
Yeah, I definitely vibe with your comment that things, at least in a portion of the space, feel more stale than they have been. It's I think a cleanse is happening. Some capitulation from some just terrible actors is beginning. I think I just saw a tweet earlier today. Ryan Carson is selling his quote unquote like forever punk. People are like, "Yo, I thought it was your forever punk. Why are you listing it, bro?" He's exiting. I think he had a tweet earlier this week or end of last week. He's like, winding things down, like taking a step back, and it's all right, bye. TTFO.
Dude, that's the type of stuff that like I was like heavy on the troll game for a while there, especially when these people like really like him like and a lot of other people sort of like started overlapping our scene and talking more about NFTs, and like it was just like all these outsiders with big voices sort of entered the space, and it was like so frustrating and annoying. And I was actually like having a good time sort of like digging in, and I got blocked by like a bunch of people like trolling them and everything because I was just sort of like, these people don't know what the fuck they're talking about. And turns out I was like largely correct. But also like I even got bored of like trolling people, which had like been fun when they were all like, entering the space, and it was like sort of new within that context, like the vibe around here and everything. But I'm like, dude, even that got old. I'm like, it's just the same shit from like a different loud voice. And they're constantly, a lot of these people are constantly doing that, saying one thing and then like doubling back on it later on. I'm like, we've just seen it so many times before. It's not even like worth calling out. And I feel like I've taken that time and spent it like making fucking AI frogs, and I'm enjoying it much better.
Yeah, I mean, in the middle of that stagnation and capitulation, it just opens up the ability to see other things. Like we were just talking, Maiko Lighton had airdropped us and some folks at Async Art in addition of their golden apple of the forest. I saw that in my wallet. And then I saw later a tweet from him. I'm like, oh shit, that's a real thing. Oh, I was really stoked. So big shout out to Maiko for hooking us up with that gorgeous pointillist work. It honestly feels like a badge of honor to kind of go through another bear and have an artist like Maiko like hit us up with that and airdrop it to us. It's really sweet. I mean, there's that, and it's still been tripping off of Pindar Van Arman's byteGANs since last week. Scooped another one of those 100% on-chain byteGANs and just been digging into that community on their Discord, and some great people over there that are just in it for the art, in it for all like the Easter eggs and the puzzles and like all the secrets that Pindar, very similarly to Matt Can, is baked in to that project. So it's been very cool there. And honestly, just the discussion on like what tech and what tools emerged over the last like real bull has been interesting too. I had a tweet the other day, pretty hyperbolic, just talking about how 1155s kill provenance. It's not 100% accurate, but I wanted to throw it out there because I saw like a recent project drop like 100 editions, all 1155s, and folks are spending like 5, 6, 7 ETH on these like NFT posters, which NFT posters are good. They have a purpose, but just the sums of money seem crazy, especially because like the individual 1155 copies, it's not easy to record that chronology of ownership, especially if like you have a collector on the secondary collecting from multiple people, then it's totally lost at that point. But it's probably more accurate to say that 1155 provenance is more of a muddy provenance because you can see like the on-chain record of sales, at least, so in the past who owned a copy at one particular point in time. And just getting into conversations and like really hyper nerdy and nuanced discussion on like what are the trade-offs between 721s and 1155s. That's been cool. And like this stagnation has opened up that aperture of conversation, which I thought was pretty cool. If not super extremely nerdy.
No, dude, I feel like we are probably in the minority in terms of the people within the space who like actually understand and appreciate the differences like of those tokens. And we've had this conversation in the past, and then like actually Point Shark surfaced and had like done 721 like right on the heels of that, and was sort of like, yeah, Point Shark like gets it. I mean, it's so tempting. I feel like if you don't really appreciate the token aspect of it, to just do the cheaper version of it. And then up until this point, you had a lot more options with the 1155 in terms of like burn options for people doing these like manifold drops and everything. And it was, and I believe they've adjusted that, or they've like implemented something for 721s now to sort of streamline that process a little better. But up until this point, I feel like it's sort of been, by use of or by proxy of how easy they were to like do weird things with or whatever, 1155s like almost became a default in a lot of people's minds. But you're right, man. And you wonder if that like piece of consumer education like ever really gets out there in like the public eye, or if like to 90% of the people who collect NFTs, they just want the thing that they want, in their wallet or whatever, and don't really care what's being done on the back end of things. But I mean, the longer the space goes on,
it was interesting. Like, it was interesting to see in the comments, like some folks really just don't give a fuck, like serious collectors too, like folks that I've had like deep DM chats with, like they surfaced and they're like, I don't fucking care who owned like my copy or like my edition. To them, 1155s, there's just like a lot more benefits that outweigh those trade-offs. And I was like, oh shit, that's really interesting. That it's not so like black and white as I was thinking. So like those conversations, and it like started to blow up like maybe 24 hours after I had the original tweet, folks weighing in on both sides of the aisle. And I was like, this is good. Like this sort of discussion,
conversation,
is really cool to see.
Yeah, I mean, you see it with like especially like during the bull market. And again, we're starting to see like a lot of these, alternatives die out, or like, sort of show their cards in terms of like not being practical options for people. But I feel like every time there's like one of these big run-ups, people sort of flock to whatever the hypest, side chain, altcoin, like whatever is. And there is this big influx of people who are just like, I don't care if it's a completely centralized blockchain. I don't care what kind of token it's on. They're just trying to like get their shit in the hands of as many people as humanly possible. And I do feel like 1155s you sort of have like a hint of that in terms of, that being like the Ethereum version of I don't give a fuck. I'm just trying to spam the shit out of like anyone who's willing to collect something on like mainnet or whatever. I'm trying to get it in their hands as easy as possible. And it certainly has its like use cases and applications and everything. But I tend to agree with you, man, especially if you're spending a lot of money on something that you look at as a piece of art and not like a blockchain experiment, or like, something, a utility token for a video game, or like, whatever, something that you don't necessarily need or care about the previous history. I mean, I think there's a fair point to be made that you could always care about the previous history if there was a way to streamline that. But but you would think on like a high-end collector's level, like you want the token is part of it, right? Like that's always been like sort of the whole mantra of the whole thing. And it's like, dude, if you, I don't know. Yeah, it's tough, dude, because I'm also like of the philosophy that like I think a lot of people just like shit, and if something resonates with them, as long as it's not going to disappear, they don't give a shit about the inner workings or what the canvas is made out of per se. But also like if your canvas sucks and is gonna like rot or some shit or like disappear or like not that 1155s are gonna do that, but I don't know, man. It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, and again, the nuance is cool, and the fact that we have space to kind of highlight and discover that nuance before like the energy comes back or like the next wave catches hold is pretty cool. The other thing that we were talking about before we started recording, or like before we started officially recording, I was doing a little like NFT archeological dig over the weekend, like looking at my old OpenSea profile, and I saw all these NFTweets that I had minted before I left Cent, like with the valuables tool back in 2020, early 2021. And I came across some of like a tweet that XCOPY had minted and sold to me, and I was like, "Oh shit! I have a 101 XCOPY tweet." And I was just diving in, and I was like, "I wonder how many other tweets he actually minted," because he had gone off at that time. I don't know if anyone remembers back when like minting tweets was like had a viral moment, in like around Thanksgiving, Christmas 2020. XCOPY and Robness were like the two main accounts that were just going fucking off and talking about like NFTweets and NFTs and that whole shit. But XCOPY ended up only minting 23 total tweets, all signed using his artist signature, his ETH address, the xcopyart.eth. And of those 23, there were 3 tweets that were just all emoji art. And it was just one of those.
Yeah. About all the emoji tweet art during that time. That was crazy.
Yeah. I got one from Twisted Vacancy, RIP, before he was discovered to have like a team of like 57 workers like scouring the web, putting together his works of art that he had minted back in the day. That's like a super tangent, but it was pretty cool to see. And I know a lot of people like have forgot about that, but all those tweets were minted on Polygon, 721 standard, and because like they're text and emoji, like it's all on chain. Like you can't, even if the original tweets were deleted, like the NF tweets like will persist as long as Polygon remains a thing. So thinking about like when to share that, and yeah, we'll be curious to see if anyone else goes in and does their own archaeological dig and see if there's anything of value there and how those NF tweets will age. So curious to see how that goes. But I was pretty stoked to see, had some cool tweets that I had scooped from folks in the space, mainly from like got Cody, XCOPY, but then we have like Mirage and a bunch of folks that were coming more from like the traditional crypto side of things, kind of served as an entry point for them to figure out and find out about what NFTs are back in the day. So cool. We'll see how it ages.
No, dude, it is cool, man. That's honestly been one of the most disappointing things of sort of us meaning like the space going mainstream is I feel like I think we were all sort of like everyone who's been around for a while is sort of hoping that like all the old shit would get drudged up and people would appreciate like how cool some of this stuff is. Although it's so funny, man. I got to take a step back for a second and just like acknowledge how funny it is that like NF tweets are now like sort of an archaeological dig. It just seemed like the newest, craziest hype like thing at the time, and now here we are, quite a while later. But you're on point with your reference to it being like sort of archaeological dig at this point. And dude, I think about stuff like the old crypto voxels wearables and stuff. Like we used to give out so many like OG wearables at like the whip on mainnet and everything. And like some of these like real niche like collections that are important and have been around for a while. Like it feels like the same like 40 people who cared about them then like still care about them now. And that circle hasn't expanded, but it's cool, man, dude. And that like, I feel like that concept, was not bad and it was never really lost, man. Like Marble Cards essentially does that now with Marble Cards. You can, mint a tweet using them and it looks nice. It like captures the image. And since I've been like putting out these, these AI art pieces that I've been making just like randomly, on my Twitter or whatever, every now and again, I get like a request for a Marble Card signature. Like someone has minted one of those tweets and everything. And I'm sure there's no, or very little, at least not for me, like secondary market for these things, but it is still like a cool concept. And it's cool to see like people like just sort of intrinsically collecting those types of things for the sake of like they just liked it, they're collecting it. I doubt they're trying to or have any high hopes of being able to like flip my autographed frog tweet for like a ton of money down the line or whatever. But and there were like a ton of NF tweets like minted then too that were like just in the spirit of like trying this out, collecting like interesting comments, sort of rapid experimentation. Just out of curiosity, man, was that project bagged or whatever, or like is that still active? Or I feel like Jack Dorsey sold the tweet for like an absurd amount of money, and then it was over.
Yeah, he sold it for 2.6 million, and the bag holder on that one like we had been trying to resell it, and I think like the top bid on it is like $13 or something. No, like if you go to v.cent.co, any of the if you had collected or minted any of your tweets, you'll be able to log in and see that. they limited the scope of what you can, like, you can't make offers on tweets anymore, but you can mint your own tweets and then put those on sale. So that, like, the bid or offer making ability has been stripped. I think there's just a whole bunch of like spam and like wash trading going on, essentially. People that own two Twitter accounts. I don't know why you would do that, but people are crazy when it comes to like crypto and wash trading. So they got rid of that, but it's still technically a thing. And again, the tweets are on chain, so it doesn't matter what happens. But I think the one nuance, if people had not withdrawn the tweets that they had collected, they're still sitting in like an omnibus wallet from Cent, and you have to make like a manual request to have those minted tweets sent to your on-chain address. So if anyone is going in on this archaeological expedition, and you see these old tweets and you want to sell them or list them or whatever, you just need to make that request to have them withdrawn to your ETH address.
It's funny, you just got me thinking, man, these micro like wash trading economies that spin up like sort of, across the board. And I feel like it happens, like it can happen anywhere and happens anywhere. And like when there's like a little crack for someone to sort of squeak in a bot or like take advantage of some shit, that it's like almost inevitable. And it just seems to like, whenever you find a space that like doesn't have that, dude, when we did the, Monaverse Advent Calendar, the week that I think it was Async Week. It might have been Async Week was the first one that got botted, but it didn't seem like we were like, okay, maybe like a few things got botted, but whoever botted it the first time figured it out the second time around and dropped like 3,000. It was like 30 people showed up for this event, but then like suddenly within the span of 10 minutes, like 3,000 ETH addresses were like dropped in the guest list, and like this shit is like nuts, man. It's like you're constantly, if you're doing anything cool, playing like whack-a-mole versus these like bots and like wash traders and people just trying to like strip every penny out of your shit.
No, anything that can be gamed will be gamed. As soon as people figure out how to actually do that. You're seeing it on Blur, like the whale accounts that are generating the most or farming the most Blur. You're seeing that a lot of them are just wash trading amongst themselves so they can farm more Blur. It's a tale as old as time, honestly.
Dude, I was gonna say, didn't you have like post something about that? How like we've seen this like literally from like many marketplaces up until now.
It started with Rarible. We saw the same thing, and then Looks Rare was part 2, and then people were acting like Blur was changing the game, and it's like it's the same incentive. Like I guess they're spreading out the Blur farming over a longer period of time, but it incentivizes the same behavior. Long term, people figure out how to game it and that bullshit.
So I would love your take on this, man. So I was like, I was doing a little, not like trolling of like Tom Moore, but like going back and forth with him a little bit on Twitter. And I love Tom Moore, but he was talking about how like basically probably insinuating that like OpenSea token, if they were to do a token, would end up being like the same shit. Like, and it's it's not, none of these tokens end up being serving a great purpose or whatever, and they all end up getting like wash traded, and like it's a bunch of bullshit. And I was sort of like, well, fuck Tom, man. I want C token, man. If they release that shit, I've been around long enough that I probably get some C token or qualify for some shit or whatever. But to your point, and probably his point as well, like I feel like none of these marketplaces have really introduced a token in a way that like incentivizes anything but like whoever figures out how to wash trade the best to like, again, just game it and squeeze out as much as possible. So I guess my question is, man, do you have thoughts on like OpenSea, like releasing or not releasing a token, and any type of path forward that would like not incentivize something like that?
I mean, how the airdrops have been done to date. So like looking at past work, doing a big airdrop, and then having like a really simple mechanism to farm more. It makes no sense to me. It makes no sense. Like, what's the purpose of a Blur token anyway, outside of like getting rich and trading and speculating on the coin itself? Like, does it unlock something? Like, do you gain membership in a DAO? Maybe. Like, do people even really participate in DAOs how they're currently structured? Like, look at super rare and the rare token. It's like You can use your token to vote in space races, and that's pretty much it. It serves no other purpose. If people release a token, the token needs to have some like really clear, valuable utility. One, and then how it's actually structured and released. I think that's the most important part. Yeah, doing like an initial airdrop that you haven't talked about and like had zero kind of speculation around to begin with, it's probably a good place to start. But like Brian Flynn over at Rabbit Hole has talked about this over and over of how like traditional airdrops are just like the worst way to incentivize like real user engagement. And he and his team have been trying to figure out ways like using Rabbit Hole as a tool to help come up with like conditional airdrops to incentivize more like actual valuable on-chain work that helps support like the whole network more meaningfully and in a way that's less prone to being gamed and shit like that. I think his focus is trying to structure quests towards that end. Again, it's a work in progress, but I don't think anyone has an answer now. And for people that are just like, yo, let's introduce a token at this point in the game, it's just setting themselves up for that short-term speculative burst that will probably fizzle out. And at the very worst, like totally wreck the network and any sort of quote unquote community that had existed around it before. Because as we know, like those sorts of like speculative incentives fuck the whole kind of ethos of communities up very, very, very quickly when done poorly.
Yeah, dude, totally. And I feel like this is sort of goes back to what we were saying in the beginning about like the space being like sort of stale, because again, man, there's like the blur thing. I'm just circling back to what you said. I'm like, we've seen this like so many times, right? It's like airdrop to the community, and then like a bunch of it gets dumped, and then right, you get accepted to a DAO, and then you can use that token to buy shit like from that platform or whatever, and people can also list it in that token, and then you've just like, you know, basically spun up a shit coin that's like, you know, does the same thing as every other platform's shit coin. And, you know, and you're right, that speculative bubble, it's just, we've just seen it like so many times, and there's so few tokens out there that actually have like cool utility, or at least I don't know, man. I feel like Avastars actually did a pretty cool job in terms of like giving a token to their holders early on that had like a clear purpose, and you could use it for this one thing, and that was to like make a replicant, and that process was pretty cool. And like, of course, there was like some speculative like waves that came alongside of this token, and there's like some scarcity involved and everything. And I actually haven't had a chance to play around with that in like quite a long time. But I'm like, at least it's like an example of like, this token serves like a clear purpose in the context of this project. And if you like this project and you want to do cool things or interact with this project, it makes sense for this project to have some sort of like thing that allows you to do that or whatever. And you know, it's an early experiment in like tokenomics and like, you know, that kind of thing as well. And there are certainly other examples of that, like not a ton that I can think of off the top of my head. But a lot of non-examples of that, and the ones that blow up are just the same shit, you know, but also you see people gearing up for the same shit. They're like, all right, here's the same shit. Time to get the wash trading, you know, skills out and fucking grind that shit out. It's just so played.
The best tokens are, I mean, first of all, like sidebar, Avastar's next like item to a box to check when it comes to like an archaeological expedition. That there's so much to explore. I totally forgot about that coin that you need to use to make your replicant. I gotta go back and check that out. But like the best tokens out there, like the ones that people actually use for things: ETH, paying for gas; Matic to interact with the Polygon network and all the shit that's going on over there, right? And I think that's pretty much it.
Man.
I mean, Bitcoin for like the once a year random transfer, like airdrop that we're doing in Token Smart, like party or something like that. But it's pretty much it. It's like a really small limited list. I mean, of course, stables too, but that's a little bit different.
I've qualified for like enough airdrops at this point that I can't think of any that I didn't completely treat as like a speculative dump. Like, you know, like, all right, when's the best time to dump this shit coin that someone sent me?
Yeah, the only airdrop that like I didn't entirely dump was OP for the Optimism network, because I sort of saw that as like a pneumatic or Polygon or whatever. So as soon as I got the airdrop, I sold what I needed to for taxes. I got a pretty massive one across a couple wallets actually, and sold what I needed for taxes and a little more for profit just in case it went to zero. But I held on to the rest, and like it's been hovering around $3. It went up like not super high, but like much higher than the original listing price, obviously, when it dropped. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. And I've been treating it more like a bonsai tree. Like I haven't done anything on Optimism since like before the airdrop. Shout out Brian Flynn and Rabbit Hole again. They had like a quest, and I was interacting with Rabbit Hole and getting a badge, and that's what actually led me to get so much of the airdrop. But since then, I haven't really used it. There's not been a project that's popped up over there, but I still have like a healthy stash that's been appreciating, I'm guessing, because like there is real legit activity on Optimism. People are building things over there, so they need the token for those purposes, similar to Matic. That's the only exception, actually.
That's interesting, man. I haven't dumped all of mine, but I'm sort of do what you're doing with a lot of mine too. I'm like, well, this is like, you know, maybe has a chance of going up at some point. So I don't think I've dumped any of my super rare token, and probably should have when it was like at its peak or whatever. But there's like, I don't know. I feel like sort of a attachment to a lot of the artists and like, you know, people involved in super rare throughout the space and history and everything. Optimism, interesting, man. I was like salty. I got some Optimism, but I was like salty that I didn't qualify for like the next round or whatever because of, I don't know, whatever they dug up in my wallet didn't qualify me, and I dumped that shit. But probably would have hung on. I don't. Yeah. I don't know, man. It would be cool to see more of that and like cool people. But dude, I feel like also like, you know, Near Particle is like a great example of like cool tech that like it seems like a ghost town over there for the most part. And there's a lot of that out there too, where I feel like I don't know enough about Optimism to like, you know how good it is or whatever, but it also seems like that doesn't matter too much either. Like people tend to like glom onto things. Like dude, actually Flow is like a great example.
What Coinbase is like they're utilizing to launch their base program or whatever. I'm not dug into the details of what Coinbase is doing, but that like they're the latest and obviously the biggest example of folks that are building on Optimism for like whatever they're aiming for. And like that's great signal. That's a legit company that has like embodies the ethos of crypto more or less. Obviously there's a lot of criticism I'm sure you could throw at Coinbase, and people have bad memories in the past of like when the market's pumping and dumping, like not being able to buy like the crypto because
Coinbase is a little sus.
It's always fucking breaking at that point. I haven't heard Coinbase breaking in a long time, but like back in the day, that was definitely a huge criticism. But like that's huge. And then like seeing that signal is great versus like Near a lot of promise, but again, like we just don't hear anyone really doing anything over there. And Ghost Town is probably a good way to describe it. And if there are people building over there, they just haven't let people know that they're still building, or they haven't let people know that there's projects or tools available that people can interact with to kind of increase the price of those tokens. It's this crazy that for builders, like you're building cool things, but then it's like you got to market it, and if you don't do the marketing effectively, then it sucks. But if you're building something that like people will want, even if you do market, it's tough, man. Being a builder in this space is so tough. It seems so easy, and it's like we just got to get a token. People can buy it anywhere around the world, and then you're actually doing it. You're like, oh shit, people aren't seeing it, or they forgot about it. It's this endless treadmill.
You realize how much of this shit like really comes down to marketing and everything, which is you know, kind of a shame in some sense because, you know, you miss a lot of like the coolest shit if you just pay attention to the flashiest stuff. But like also to your point, man, it's like, you know, if you can build like the coolest thing in the world, but if you don't have a way of like telling people about it, you're just stuck with like your cool thing. And dude, I feel like when the space expanded so rapidly, you know, stuff like Near Protocol was set up to catch the masses that were coming in when the space was expanding so rapidly. And so there's a lot of like cool projects who are, you know, I think were sort of positioning themselves as if that sort of pace would continue, or we had like at least captured some significant audience that wasn't going anywhere. But now it just seems like, you know, the whole space is a ghost town, you know, beyond you know, sort of like the influencers and like, you know, people sort of loudly shilling their like new boring stuff or whatever. But in terms of like the super fans and like the people who are actually like in the thick of it, using this stuff like day in and day out, it seems like it is pretty much a ghost town, which is how I feel like everyone ended up building on ETH for the most part in the first place. I mean, tech aside, I mean, we know how marketing can like sway people, but it seemed like that was where the people were. And it's like, if you didn't want to sort of go off into your own ghost town, even if it's like really cool tech doing something different, like who wants to get sort of siloed away from the only crowd who like really gives a shit about what you're doing, you know?
Yeah. And like the ghost town, it's a relative ghost town compared to the Bull, but compared to pre-Bull, like this is a fucking crazy party. There's so much happening. Like Starbucks is at this party, like using the NFT reward program and like onboarding folks there, like building in a big way, attracting other like massive corporations to do shit on Polygon, which is fucking nuts. But then you have artists like Joe Peace, who like earlier over the weekend had a crazy release. This, I don't know if you're familiar with Joe, but each of his works is like a visual acid trip. You watch it and you just start tripping balls. His recent work, Temporary, is just, or Everything is Temporary, is so fucking good. I think it sold for like 120 ETH.
Shit.
He's an Atom represents Joe. Atom is what Vincent Van Gogh put together. Vincent was the one, VVD was the one that actually scooped the work, which is kind of funny. Like seeing that, I'm like, dude, you produce artists and they put out new work and all you want to do is just fucking collect everything. It's kind of a funny predicament, but like this art, this energy, the activity that's happening in this ghost town, like it's really cool to see. And I think like that perspective and zooming out to see like, yeah, there's fewer people here, but still amazing things are happening. I think that is a really important thing that the folks realize and temper the kind of negative sentiment of it being a relative ghost town.
Yeah. Yes, relative, certainly. And dude, by far more action going on. And yeah, man, maybe I need to walk that statement back a little bit because we certainly have absorbed a lot of people who are in it to stay. And dude, it's interesting. I'm sort of starting to see like, you know, so I started like day trading shit coins and crypto like pretty early on, like 2012, 2013. And did like, you know, well enough to be able to fucking do whatever I do now and you know, quit my full-time job and enter the tech world. And, you know, I'm not, you know, one of these fucking Bitcoin billionaires or anything, but like was pretty good at like reading the markets and like noticing patterns and everything. And I feel like I'm starting to see some of the same patterns now that like the NFT market is more mature that I was like seeing in like the early altcoin days where, you know, everything went to, you know, basically zero for a little while there during some of these like real bad like bear markets where like shit just bottomed out like 90% or whatever. But there was like always this thing I noticed where like, you know, if the project is like still active and the builders are still building, like, and it has like any type of like anything going on for it, like most likely that market's not totally dead and will come back at some point. And I feel like if I'm looking at like some of the offers I'm getting, I still use mint.fun. I don't know if there's a better one out there, but at least I haven't gotten rugged by it yet, but it sort of aggregates all the offers across all these different marketplaces and everything. And it's been really interesting to see a lot of these projects that I had completely written off as dead, like, a year, 2 years ago or whatever, starting to get like low ball bids on them. And I assume they're coming from bots or whatever, but I'm like, this is interesting because this project is either has some sort of like interesting relevancy to the context of NFTs, or like, someone out there is still working on it or something. And so it's interesting to see that like sort of tokenomics pattern that I felt like definitely happened with altcoins, and was then during the next like, bull runs or whatever, these, active projects that were sort of written off for dead, usually ended up doing all right. And I really hope to see that in the context of the NFT space, because dude, it's been like a long bear run even at this point. And I know a lot of projects and people are like sort of bleeding out money by sticking around and trying to do their thing. And you hope to see that like rebound effect, that like people appreciate the ones who have been sort of out there working on these like quote unquote dead projects this entire time during the next run up and everything. But there's a lot of that going on around here. And I feel like that's cool and like very inspiring that there's a lot of broke motherfuckers still working on trying to make cool stuff, even though, no one has as much change in their pocket as they did, a year and a half ago or whatever.
No, totally, man. Though, probably a good place to start wrapping up. Do you want to tease out what folks can expect at the Whip this week?
Yeah, dude, we got Arden Lucas in the house, who I don't know if people remember, a while ago he made the Rizzle cloak, which is actually just an experiment of his. He's trying to sort of bridge the gap between like physical and digital projects in like a very cool way. And he's also the one who is doing the custom on-chain shirts for people who own on-chain chains. So I've known him for a long time, and he's got a brilliant like Web 2 clothing apparel setup called Shirt Car Wash right now. But he's always like tinkering around with interesting stuff in the overlap of like Web 3 and Metaverse. And it's just like a fascinating dude. So he's going to do sort of like a screen share demo Q&A thing of what he's currently working on. We're going to be hosting it through our buddy J Got Games, Bob Ross Parody Land in Fromosville. So we'll be broadcasting that stream into there, and then been talking with him. He's cooking up some new stuff, and we'll pass the mic over to him and check out what he's got going on and wander around and check out the Fros in Fromosville.
Awesome, dude. Stoked for that. And a big shout out to Trizlet and Token Smart fam and everyone who showed up and is listening to us live record. Brocock, Combo, Dragonade's mom, Acapella. A few other folks were hopping in and out of the stage, but this is cool. I love doing this. And then like the chatter in the live chat in real time is pretty cool to read and scroll through today as well.
Oh,
awesome.
Shit. I didn't even know that was going on.
Yeah.
I will go scroll. Yo, right on. Dude, yeah, always fun to do this. Good stuff coming up. I will see you at the Weep. I will see you at the Whip live from ETH Denver. If anyone's at ETH Denver and wants to like hang out and do the Whip live with me from, I don't know, somewhere there, we should sync up same time, I guess an hour or two earlier Denver time than I'm used to, but whatever, we'll figure it out.
Cool. Later, y'all.
Later, y'all.
Peace.